All right, we are back with another recording and stream of Mr. President, the demo of the digital version from XCL Labs and GMT Games. Um, and so here I'm going to play through the demo scenario and talk a little bit about all the different elements that are in the demo. Mr. President, for those of you who don't know, is a board game that came out in 2023, and this is a digital adaptation of that board game, and it is about the American presidency from the year 2000 to 2020, or as we put it, from 9/11 to COVID-19. Um, so this game is a kind of a straight up game. It's not a comedy game. It's not a political satire. This is a pretty earnest game about doing one of the hardest jobs in the world. The demo is going to start kind of in the middle of activation phase one down here. In the full version, of course, you would start at the beginning up here with the U.S. special activations. The whole turn sequence is 1 year of your term, and so one term of your presidency you'll go through this turn sequence 4 times. And then you'll run for re-election if you're playing the sandbox scenario, or if you're playing one of the historical scenarios that represents a president's first term, like 2000 or 2008 or 2016. Okay, so how do you play this game? So in the full game, the main objective is to accumulate legacy points. Legacy points come from a few different sources. They come from passing legislation, particularly good or important legislation. They come from winning wars. They come from maintaining America's global leadership and global stability in the world. And they come from resolving certain crises, which are represented in this game by crisis cards. We have a selection of crisis cards in the demo, but the full game has many, many, many more. We're going to start with this activation segment. Each of the little boxes on this sequence is called an activation segment, and then the columns of boxes are called activation phases. And so we get to do 4 diplomatic and/or military actions. Now, if you're going to play the demo, particularly if you're not familiar with the board game, I really encourage you to hover on everything and take a look at all these tooltips that we've written. Some of them are short, and some of them are about things that haven't been built yet, right? Like this one that says under construction. But the others are long and explain mechanics in some depth, and also will suggest some actions you can take if you want to interact with that track, or if you want to interact with that marker, right? So for example, here's the state of the economy track. As you can see, the state of the U.S. economy is not great in the start of this demo scenario. It's in the 4 box here, which is going to be the stagnation box. If I want, as a player, if I don't know anything about how to work with the economy, I can hover this, and it'll say what this means. It'll tell me about how the marker moves, and it'll tell me actions I can undertake. So just take a look at everything, right? There's even on the legislative bills, which we haven't implemented yet, right? There's some tooltip details to hopefully whet your appetite for the full version. Okay, so what should I do with these 4 diplomatic and military actions? So I talked about how the main objective in the full game is to accumulate legacy points. There's a saying which is you lose the game on the right, which is the world map, and you win the game on the left over here, which is the domestic area, because the your legislative efforts will determine a lot about your legacy. That's not to say there are no legacy points to be had in the regional area, but generally the world is more about managing threats, and that's what this demo focuses on. When we have an action segment that gives us some actions we can take, the thing we want to do is first we want to kind of look at the board, and part of the skill of this game is looking at the board and recognizing board situations that are dangerous versus the ones that maybe you can kind of put off dealing with. Okay, so let's do that. Let's take a look. So if you look at the world map, you can see the different regions, and one of the tracks that each region has is the regional crisis level. And so if we look at Africa here, we can see that regional crises starts out almost on the major crisis box. So we would really like to avoid a major regional crisis. And so we can use different actions to reduce regional crises. In the most direct way, as the tooltip said, is the crisis relief action. So that's what we'll try here. So we're going to open up the crisis relief action from the action list. This is a diplomatic action, so it is allowed in this phase, or excuse me, in this segment. And so as you can see, it's a D10 check. Most of the die rolls in Mr. President are D10s, and so we are going to. There are some tables and actions that require a D6 roll, but in this case, you can see that you choose a region, roll a D10. If you get a 1 or less, that's a critical success. You're gonna decrease regional crises by 2 boxes. On a 2 through 6, it's a standard success. You're going to get a 1 box reduction, and on a 10, you get a critical failure, which is U.S. involvement causes the crisis to get worse, and so it increases the crisis level by 1 box. Obviously, rolling a 10 would be really bad, but you'll notice that we get a bonus here. It's a -1 bonus. Negative numbers are generally bonuses in this game because rolling low is generally what you want to do. And so in this case, we're going to get a -1 bonus because our Secretary of State has a diplomatic rating of 1. So let's quickly go and take a look at the cabinet here. And I'm moving around. I can right click and drag, and I can use WASD to move around quickly and kind of glance around the board. So if we zoom in a little bit on the cabinet here, Ellen Price is our vice president. Bill Hansen is our chief of staff. Bo Hamilton is our Secretary of State, and Raul Sanchez is our Secretary of Defense. And as you can see from the tooltip, each of those individuals has 3 ratings: domestic, diplomatic, and military. And notice they all have 0 diplomatic ratings except for Bo Hamilton, which explains why he's the Secretary of State. This is a fairly mediocre cabinet. You can improve your cabinet in a couple different ways. They will tend to get experienced over the course of your term, and they'll flip into their more experienced side, which generally has higher ratings and possibly even bonus actions, which is very handy. But some of them are just not that great. And so you can use ask for resignation to reshuffle your roster, and of course cabinet members can fall out of favor due to scandals, and they can resign on their own if there's a lot of cabinet drama, or certain crises can precipitate political scandals as well. Also up here in the cabinet area, by the way, is your this is the White House area, I guess, is your presidential attributes, right? So you get 2 special abilities as the president. If you're playing on easy, they're always both good. Sometimes they're bad. And in this case, we do have 2 beneficial ones. We have domestic focus, right? So you can imagine that as president, or before you were president, maybe you were a large state governor, or very powerful and effective governor, and so you have a lot of experience or connections, or a good team, a good domestic policy team. And that would be that's what this domestic focus attribute represents. Whereas media savvy simply means you understand the media really well. You're good at maintaining a relationship with the press. And so every turn, at the beginning of every year, you'll just get a flat boost to your media relations, which is handy because media relations tend to decline over time as the press kind of gets bored and looks for stories. Okay, so that's why we have a -1 bonus on our crisis relief action, right? So we're going to go ahead and take this action, and we are going to pick Africa as our first target for crisis relief. And we're going to roll the die. And a 9 minus 1 is an 8, which is no effect. So that's not a great result. You'll notice, though, that we can re-roll the die. You can re-roll your action dice once per roll for the cost of 1 action point. That's this down here, action points on the lower left. Action points and actions are not the same. And action points represent your political capital, favors that people owe you, connections, old relationships, whatever you can imagine, that allows you to kind of make your actions a little easier. You can spend 1 AP, so many, there are many sinks for action points in the game, and rerolling is one of them. And so let's go ahead and use that. And so 7 minus 1 is 6. That does get us to barely into the success box, or the success category. So we're going to decrease regional crises by 1 box, and that's what happens. And now Africa is not on the brink of a major crisis anymore. It's not, we'd obviously like this to be even lower, but at least it's not one step from a major crisis. Okay, so that was a good crisis relief action. We'll do the same in the Middle East for basically the same reasons. So let's go ahead and do that. And, oh, didn't quite take there. So we're going to click the Middle East and roll the die. 8 minus 1 is 7. That's kind of the same issue. I really hate to spend 2 action points on rerolls this early, but I do feel like forestalling a major crisis is a very important goal here. And so we're going to get a 2 minus 1. We get paid off by the action point as we get a crit success. And so the Middle East is going to decline by 2 boxes. And that is a welcome development. Okay. Now that those immediate crises are over, let's continue to scan the board a little bit. There's one domestic crisis. You'll notice that the domestic failure track is shorter than the regional crisis track. So it is easier to back into a domestic failure. We would love to reduce that, but unfortunately we don't have access to domestic actions yet. Not in this segment. We'll get in a future segment. We'll have access to them, unless, of course, we want to spend 2 action points and take any action. That's very pricey, but it does let you take an action of any type in a dire situation. I don't think this is that dire though, so we're not going to spend 2 action points to forestall this domestic crisis right away. Okay, what else? So over here is Eastern Europe and the Russian Federation. The Russians are one of the 2 peer rivals that you will have to contend with in the game, the other being the PRC. Both of the Russians and the Chinese have their own victory conditions, and if they achieve their victory conditions, you will immediately lose. I'm not going to talk as much about Russia, but in the demo here, China's influence is legitimately a threat. If it gets to 15 influence, if the PRC is able to reach 15 influence markers across the whole board, then they will, at the start of one of their activations, so it's not instantaneous, but if that situation holds at the start of one of a China activation, then they will immediately win. Right, and as the tooltip tells you, this represents the PRC having achieved its long-term goal of forging a world order with itself at the center. Okay, so how can we get rid of China influence markers? There is an action called attempt to remove Chinese or Russian influence counter in one region. And if we open this up, we'll see that we must choose a region with a regional alignment of 7 or 8, or 6 if the regional crises are 0. So regional alignment is a value that represents the region's general alignment or sympathy to U.S. interests. And so obviously a region that has strong alignment with U.S. interests will be willing to listen and will be willing to move away from from China's or Russia's sphere of influence. And if even if that alignment is more marginal, if the region is quiet and peaceful, represented by a 0 value on the regional crisis track, then they will likewise be targetable with this action. So we would like to remove this influence in the Asia Pacific region, but regional alignment is only 6, so we'll need to get regional crises down to 0 first. So let's go ahead and attempt to do that again with the crisis relief action. So we're going to go down here. We're going to roll the die, and we get another critical success. Unfortunately, it's a little bit wasted because there's only 1 box to move down, but we'll certainly take that. So we will spacebar to proceed and implement that result. So now that's 0 crises, and now with our final military or diplomatic action, we will attempt to remove a Chinese influence marker. And this is a really simple roll. On a 1 through 6, we succeed. And on any other result, we fail. So we'll roll this. We do, in fact, get a 6, and so 1 China influence is going to be discarded. And now we are done with our diplomatic and military activation segment, and draw. We're now going to draw a chit from the crisis pool. And so this can result in drawing different kinds of crisis cards. And so we're going to do that. And so we're going to draw one crisis card right now. The plus symbol means that in the next segment we're going to draw another chit. If the chit we'd drawn didn't have a plus symbol, then we would skip this one and the next. We would skip the next one and the one after it. But we are going to draw one crisis card now, and then we're going to draw again from the cup. All right, the Fed is going to raise interest rates. Okay, so we have to make a state of the economy check. The card tells us that since our the card pulls in our state of the economy, we don't need to go and look at it. We know that it is 4 because the card is telling us that. So we need to roll d10 less than or equal to 4, and hopefully that will work out for us. It does 3. So the raising of interest rates in this case is going to lead to an economy improving trend marker and a public approval bonus, right? So the public may see this, for example, as the Fed is taking measures to curb inflation. So the economy gets an improving trend. Notice it doesn't just go up a box, right? Because as we saw from the tooltip, this track at the very bottom of the tooltip, this track uses trending markers. Trending markers are like half steps, so we need another improving marker to actually move it up a box. If we get a worsening marker, it'll just cancel out this one. And then we get a public approval, and so if the public approval would increment down here, and so our approval rating right now is 36, which it's okay. It's not great, but it's okay. Now we're going to see what Congress thinks of the Fed action. And we're hopefully going to pass our relations with Congress check, and our relations with Congress are also 4. So we'll roll this. That's a fail, and so contentious congressional hearings highlight a rising star among the opposition. We're going to get a new political opponent in Congress. Okay, so political opponents come out of a cup. We've drawn Estelle Lamb, who's a radical with a legislative skill of 1. We could have done worse than that. Estelle Lamb is not obviously she as a radical, she's going to make bipartisan cooperation a little harder. At a legislative skill of 1, the opposition bills are going to get a little more oomph behind them. But for example, she's nowhere near as bad as Charles Gates, who's already one of our congressional opponents. He's got a legislative skill of 2 and is radical, and he has a media rating, which means he is skilled with the media. He's going to be a formidable opponent in Congress, and will want eventually, once the full game is and all the actions are built, you'll have tools that you can use to deal with your congressional opponents. Not House of Cards style, but you'll have ways. You'll definitely have ways you can manage the balance of power in Congress. And so Estelle Lamb is going to become a prominent opponent. Okay. Rising star. Okay, so now we are going to draw another chit from the cup, and this time we're going to get 2 crisis cards, and it's another plus, so we are going to draw in the next segment as well. 2 more crisis cards. China creates massive infrastructure and jobs fund. Okay, so they're going to roll d10 to pick a region randomly. If you look at the regional map, you can see that every region has a little die icon that tells you what number is associated with it for random checks like this. Okay, so we're going to roll. 2, it is Central and South Asia. That is where China is going to make a major investment. So now the impact of this is going to depend on the current state of the Chinese economy. If it's 5 or more, then it'll do this, and if it's less than 5, it'll do something a little less dramatic. It is 5 or more, so they do get the large impact. So that's going to increase the region's stability by 1 as China comes in and does impose some stability, and reduces crisis level. But 2 China influence markers will be placed there, and so that is what happens. One of the things to keep in mind is that anytime there are 3 markers in a region, at the start of an activation for that peer rival, they'll convert into a base. Bases are the same as having 3 influence, but they're much harder to remove. Almost nothing in the game removes or interacts with bases. So you really want to avoid Russia and China creating bases anywhere. Okay, So that it has been resolved. And the next card, because that was a draw 2, is Chinese oil development deal brings stability to region. So now they're going to do this again. They're going to choose another random region and develop oil. And again, oh, sorry, it was a different table. So this is just using the previous card was using a custom table. This time they are investing in Eastern Europe. So it's probably more like natural gas than oil. And so +1 to stability in that region and a China influence there as well. Okay. So so China very active right now, thanks to the cards. And we're going to draw another chit, and we're going to draw 2 more cards. The plus now doesn't matter because we don't, we're not looking at whether chits had pluses. The next one is going to be an action window for us. But we got 2 more draws. The White House media team takes web by storm, so this is, our savvy media team is able to get some TikTok likes and some viral videos going. So we get 3 public approval. And then we're going to roll a d10 and possibly get some media relations. We'll definitely get some media relations no matter what we roll. But if we roll low, we'll get a +2 action points as well, which we do. That's great. We like that. Media relations has gone up. Action points has gone up. And so now we're going to draw our next card, which is new automation technologies create huge increase in Chinese factory production. Okay, so this cluster of cards certainly tells a story about what the PRC is doing. They are really making a strong effort to invest in their economy and to make deals around the world. And that is something that is going to help them become quite ascendant if we're not careful. So the first thing they do is they get an economy improving counter and a +1 action point marker. So they get their economy, like ours, uses those trending markers. And they get a bonus action. We haven't implemented all the China actions yet, so that doesn't matter as much in the demo. But the more actions China can perform, the more influential and dangerous they will become. Place 1 China influence in Asia Pacific, so the one we pulled out is basically replaced. Then they get another one in a random region, and that is going to be a 4. And so that's the Middle East, so they get a second influence there. And then if China's relations with the U.S. is 3 or higher, both the Chinese and U.S. economies improve. It is 3 or higher. It's trending anti-U.S., but that hasn't moved down to the red zone yet. And so that means their economy is going to improve, and so is ours. Ours was already improving, so those 2 together is 2 half steps, and that means we get up 1. And then likewise, theirs is going to improve as well. Oh, sorry, it wasn't an economy boost for them. My mistake. It was it improved the relations with them, right? With us. So now it's kind of more firmly in neutral. That trending anti-U.S. marker is gone. Okay. And now we are in a segment that is any 3 actions followed by a course support check. I'll explain what that means in a second. But 3 actions. Okay, so so China's up to 11 influence after that cluster of cards. That is a dangerous situation. We should action it. Luckily, the oil development deal raised the stability in China, in Central and South Asia. And so if we can crisis relief this, then we will be able to remove some of this influence. So let's do that. This is a potentially serious situation as China gets close to 15 influence. Okay, so 8 minus 2. Notice that we get another -1 bonus because of the 6 or higher regional stability. So that's good. So that is going to reduce regional crises to 0. That then, paired with the regional stability of 6, means that we... sorry. It is the regional stability is not sufficient because what we care about is alignment here, and that is far off. Well, okay, so that was actually a miscalculation on my part. That's a misplay on my part. Alignment versus stability can be hard to remember even for me. So 6 stability makes it easier to reduce regional crises, but it does not allow us to target China influence. Okay, so let's look at what we can do about that. We could try to improve regional alignment in Central South Asia. That is not a terrible idea. We'll need 2 successes 3 successes. 1 to get rid of this anti-trend, and then 2 more to push it up to 6. That will take a lot of actions, so that's risky. We only have 2 left after that successful crisis relief. We could start to try to deal with some of these terror groups in the Middle East and in Central South Asia. These can get out of control. Terror groups have levels 1 through 4. Level 1 terror groups are more like organized gangs. You can think of them as MS-13, some of the smaller drug cartels, or smaller ideological groups. Whereas a level 4 terror group is a well-funded multinational organization like Al-Qaeda, and so you want to stop terror groups from getting up to level 4, because then there's a risk that they will become what's called a rogue state, and rogue states are big troublemakers in this game. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, we really do want to get rid of this of a third China influence in Central South Asia. So we are going to try to at least make some progress here. So we're going to take this action, and we're going to target Central South Asia, and you'll notice that we have some penalties here because there's both Russia and Chinese influence present. That makes it hard to improve alignment because those peer rivals are also advancing their own interests. We do get that Secretary of State bonus, and so we need to roll less than or equal to the current alignment, which is 5. And so really we need a 4 or less, because we're net +1 difficulty here. So we're going to roll the die, and we're going to succeed. We rolled a 1, and we get a 2, so we pass. So that is going to put a trending pro-US marker here, which is just going to cancel out the -1. Okay. I think at this point, with 7 action points, we are going to spend 2 action points to take a bonus action. And that bonus action is going to look like another attempt to improve alignment in Central South Asia. So let's do that. These are not high odds rolls, but and so we will re-roll this. Critical failure. We did not roll a critical failure here, a natural 10. Which is a backfire, but we are going to spend 1 to re-roll, and we get another hit here, and so that's going to trend US. 1 more success, and we will be able to target this China influence. And so the question is, do we spend 2 of our 4 remaining action points for another extra action? Oh, sorry, we cannot do that. That's limited to 1 per segment. So we've already done this. You can't buy yourself tons of extra actions. There are places on the turn sequence where you will get a lot of actions in a row, and there are some really useful places. I'm thinking particularly at the end of phase 3 here. You'll get 1 action for the president and each cabinet member. So this is 5 actions, and then you get 4 more. So this is a window where you get 9 actions. So there's a lot going on at the end of activation phase 3. Okay, we will. Let's see. I think the call here is we are going to go ahead and try to push that to 6. So let's do that. That's a failure because 5 became a 6, and we need to roll a 5 or less. We are going to try to re-roll this, and we get a failure. It's not a natural 10 at least, but it's no dice. Okay. Now our core support check. So this is a mechanic. This is an interesting mechanic. This is one of the ways in which the game models political polarization. Basically, the more your public approval is going to gravitate towards 40, right? So right now, core support check is going to cause our public approval to go down towards 40, and the amount that it does is determined by how close you are with your party. So the more tight you are with your party, the more the core support check will move the marker. So that can be very beneficial for you if you're below 40 approval. You could get carried up quite a lot by your party relations. But if you're above 40, then having high party relations will actually hurt you in the core support check. Okay, so we just lose 1 box. It said 2 boxes, but you can only you don't go past 40. You just go to 40. You go towards 40. Okay, now we're going to be in the terror and chaos phase. And so what we're going to do here is roll the die, and on a 1 through 5 it's going to be terror, and on a 6 through 10 it's chaos. It's terror. So we're going to have 1 regional crisis gets added to any region that has a rogue state. There are no rogue states, because we haven't implemented them yet. But in each region where there are at least 2 level 1 terror groups, they're going to merge into a level 2 terror group. So as you can see, Africa, these 2 level 1s are going to become a level 2. That it won't actually affect the Middle East here, but it will affect Central South Asia and APAC, and so it'll just do that consolidation for us automatically. And then we're going to roll on the Terror Acts table. That's the final part of the Terror Acts procedure. We're going to go to 4. The highest level terror group on the board increases by 1 level. And then we create a new level 1 terror group in a random region. Okay, so there are a lot of level 2 terror groups, so one of them is going to become level 3. And then also a level 1 terror group is going to get added to a... yeah. So, okay, so why did it go from 2 to 4? Great question, you may have asked. So first, the highest level 2 group, the highest group, and there are lots of level 2s, so we just picked one. The game just picked one randomly. That promoted to level 3, and then it added a terror group to a random region, which happened to be the Middle East. But as you can see from the stability track, there's a maximum of 5 terror groups in a region at this level of stability, and if you have to add a group and you can't because of the limit, then instead it promotes the highest one. So that level 3 one immediately became level 4. So this is very dangerous. This was this is bad luck, because obviously what we were hoping was that the random region would be somewhere other than the Middle East that isn't full of terror groups already. But it was, and as a result we now have a level 4 terror group. And so that is a dire situation. We'll really want to deal with that. Okay, so we have a few things that are really capturing our attention here. Okay, we skip the Ally and Rogue State Group Acts phase and the UN Acts phase because those are under construction, and we're going to move straight into 3 domestic actions. Okay, so this is a case where we may very well want to buy a military action with 2 action points, and that is what we're going to do, because we would really like to start gathering intel on that level 4 group, which we know nothing about, right? It's not on the Middle Eastern intel track. The intel track has 3 stages: gathering intel, locating, and target fixed. And if a terror group is not on this track, it means we don't really have a great sense of what they're up to. So we're obviously going to target this level 4 terror group, and we are going to roll the die, and we're going to succeed. We're now gathering intel on this group. We're going to need to succeed again to get them into locating, and then again into target fixed. If we're locating a group, we can launch a drone strike or an airstrike against them. If they're in target fixed, then we can launch a spec ops raid. Okay, and then we also get a second attempt. I just chose another group in the Middle East, although they didn't have to be in the same region. And so that one also is going to go into the gathering intel. Okay, and we will have a neater stack system for these markers. Okay, cool. So that was good. It cost us all but one. We only have 1 action point left, and we have 3 domestic actions. And unfortunately, those domestic actions are not going to let us make progress, on these foreign policy goals. But this is where we can go ahead and target that domestic crisis. And so we will go ahead and do that with a -2 bonus because of our domestic focus attribute that we talked about earlier, and the vice president's domestic rating. Okay, so that's going to be a success because we needed to roll less than or equal to our cabinet effectiveness stat, which the track tells us is 5, but you can see on the track here on the board here it's 5. So we did succeed, and so we're going to reduce the domestic crisis track by 1 box and get a public approval. This is another difference. The American public will give you, will care more about the resolution of domestic crises than about foreign crises. So that's just politics, right? So you get a public approval boost. Okay, We can stimulate the economy. Obviously, the economy is in pretty good shape right now, but it's never bad to stimulate the economy. So we're going to need to roll a 5 or less. We can't, unfortunately, afford to spend 2 optional action points for a -2 modifier. We don't have any of the other bonuses, but it's still worth it. Partly because this action can only be used once per segment, so you're limited how often you can take this action. You can't spam it. Unfortunately, that's a fail, and we don't. We could reroll. We could reroll with our last action point, but I think we want to save that. Okay, so now we have 1 domestic action left, and it is going to be. Let's take a look. Even though our domestic crises are 0, we're still allowed to address domestic crisis because the success does give you public support. This is not an efficient way to get public approval, but we don't stop you. Another thing that we can do is we can address a lingering domestic issue. These are domestic issues that have hung around for a long time. They're often caused by crises. They are harder to remove. They come with a built-in die roll modifier, a flat +2 penalty. But if you let them accumulate too much, you will lose immediately, right? So if you ever get a 6th one, then you are done. What that represents is basically the legitimacy of of the U.S. government domestically falling apart. We do have a bonus, which is domestic focus, so we could try that. So we're DRM is +1 total. Okay, so that's one possibility. Another possibility would be to corral the cabinet. That's to improve your cabinet effectiveness. I actually think that is what I want to do. You have to pass. You have to. This is a D6 roll, I believe. Yeah, we have the wrong icon here, but this is a D6 roll, and so we don't have any bonuses or penalties. So this is just a flat roll. So we have a it's a 1 in 3 chance of success. It's not awesome, but yeah, unfortunately we get no effect. Okay, we could re-roll, but not going to re-roll 1 in 3. Okay, now we're going to draw another crisis chit, and that is going to be another crisis card, just 1. Delays and cost overruns plague China's oil and transport projects in South America. So this is a setback for China, which we welcome right now, given how much influence they've been able to spread. So they're going to lose an influence from South America, and they're going to get tensions counter and a worsening economy. So that worsening economy cancels out their improving economy, and tensions counters represent sort of nervousness, agitation, aggression in your allies and rivals. And so that is going to make China a little harder to deal with. But 1 tensions counter is not the end of the world. Okay, now we're going to resolve all the wars. There are no main wars to resolve, but there are a lot of civil wars. As you can see, Eastern Europe here has a civil war that is a ceasefire, and so we're going to roll on the ceasefire table. That is a permanent peace, but nation is fragile. So that's going to remove the ceasefire and decrease regional crises by 1 box and place an unstable state. So regional crises go down to 0, and an unstable state appears. Okay. So that's not as good as simply the war ending in a solid peace, because unstable states can collapse back into civil war. They can become rogue states. There's various problems with unstable states, but at least it is not an ongoing war. Okay. Update this civil war. So the Middle East has a live civil war going. It's not a ceasefire, but now it is. So it becomes the ceasefire. Again, regional crisis down by 1 box. We don't have peacekeepers in the game yet, but UN peacekeepers would come in. And then if there were an Iranian influence counter, then it would be removed. Iran is the only other country besides Russia and China that can place influence counters. There is no auto win for Iranian influence, but Iranian influence does tend to cause problems. Okay, so that becomes a ceasefire. And now we have 2 civil wars in Central and South Asia. We're going to try here. Fighting continues in the first one for no effect. And then the second one is going to likewise... Oh, no, that's a critical failure. Fighting intensifies and a refugee crisis. So not only do we get +1 regional crises, we are also going to immediately resolve a refugee crisis. that refugee crisis, because it is from Central South Asia, is going to affect Russia, which strains Russia's resources, and Russia's going to get penalized but for one action in its next activation phase. So geopolitically, cynically, we don't hate that. Obviously, we don't like to see refugee crises, but it does give Russia something else to do with its actions besides cause trouble for us. The African Civil War. That's a 2. Ceasefire. Again, a great result. -1 regional crises. We would get peacekeepers, and so that's ceasefire. That civil war is people have stopped shooting. Okay. Now back to any 4 diplomatic or military actions. Okay, so it is here that we will take advantage of the situation we tried to set up. We are going to try to push this alignment up to 6. We're going to try to reduce this regional crisis to 0, and that will qualify us to make an attempt at the China influence, at removing a China influence marker. Because, again, at the start of China's turn, if it has 3 influence in a region, then they will become a base. We don't want that. And either Russia or China will act in the next phase, so that is very dangerous. Also, just functionally, and kind of deep diving here a little bit, in activation phase 1, which is in the past, it would be Russia or China acts. You roll a die, and it's even chance. Russia, and then it's whichever one acts, the other one acts in the next phase. That's why there's no roll for this one. So we know that China is going to act in the next phase. So let's see if we can prevent a base from getting built in Central South Asia. Okay, so we're going to first improve alignment. Okay. So we're going to roll this die, and that is going to fail. We are going to spend... Well, you know what? We're not going to spend our action point here. We will instead, because we have 3 actions left, we will try to brute force it a little bit. And fail again. This time we will reroll, and we fail again. And not only that, it's a natural 10, and so we actually lose our pro-US trend. That is about as badly as that could have gone. And we only have 2 actions left, and we've still got a level 4 terror group to deal with. So unfortunately, I think we have to concede a base to China in Central South Asia. That's going to cause problems for the rest of the game. But we're out of action points. We can't buy bonus actions, and so that is a bad outcome. Okay, so we're going to target this level 4 terror group, and we're going to succeed. That moves them into locating. And then I think we will also target this level 2 terror group in Central South Asia and succeed, moving them into target fixed. And with our final action, we are going to, I think, normally we would really like to be able to execute a Spec Ops raid on a level 4 terror group, but I think we are going to have to go in hard. We can't wait. We are going to perform an airstrike on this terror group. Okay, so we are going to take an action. There's a little bug there where it doesn't think we have an air force here, but we do. And so we are going to roll the die, and we're going to get a 6, get a 5, which is strike is successful, but causes civilian casualties. So the terror group is going to get degraded by 2 levels. We get a U.S. military footprint counter, which is always bad. That represents collateral damage, friction with U.S. military forces, and so forth, and a -1 public approval, and a trending anti-U.S. counter. So we did achieve our objective of bringing down that level 4 terror group meaningfully, but at a non-trivial cost. Okay. That was the end of that segment, and now we are in the state of the economy. And so the state of the economy allows us to take 1 U.S. economic assistance action and no positive or negative effects from the state of the economy. And so what it lets us do is either improve a region's alignment or improve an ally relationship. Obviously, improving alignment would have been great earlier, but that's not the order in which things go. And so I think we will improve our relationship with India from close to very close. As you can see, now we have a very close relationship with India. And now it is China's turn. And so what is China going to do? So China first checks to see if it wins the game. At 10 influence, it is 5 short, so it's not going to win yet. Now, all of its tension counters flip. So it started with 2, it got 1 from that crisis, and now it has 5. That's actually an important number. You can hover this yellow eye to see what all the rules are here. But what's going to happen is because there's an increment of 5 in their tension, they are going to increase one of their conflict tracks. And so it's either going to increase their conflict track with with Japan or with India. And it's going to be India. So the India-China conflict track moves up one step closer to war. These conflict tracks represent all of the potential hot spots that could become wars that don't necessarily involve the U.S. And so if any of these conflict status markers reach 5, then a war will break out involving those countries. If it reaches 5 in one of the red squares, then the game is over immediately. Russia and NATO going to war will cause an immediate game loss. Same with China and Japan. So we're glad that China and Japan are not crossing swords right now. But China-India conflict is also not something we're excited about either. Okay. Now, does our relationship with does the U.S. relationship change? Well, again, 5 tension is going to be enough to place 1 trending anti-U.S. marker. So it does trend anti-U.S. So that 1 tension marker actually is tipping the balance into a couple of bad effects. Then we throw out half of the tension markers, or we throw them all out and then redraw half. So that now we don't know exactly, right? Because they're all either 0, 1, or 2. Then they're going to attempt to make their strategic capability improvements. So at posture 2, they get to make 3 attempts. The first one they always try is cyber warfare. They're going to fail here, so they're going to remain at parity with the U.S. Then they're going to try to improve their naval forces training and tech. And a 5 minus 1 is a 4, which is a success. So they are going to move up to parity with us on the naval side. And then they are going to choose another one randomly. That will be strategic recon and intel gathering. And that's also going to be a success if they gain parity with us on that as well. And then there's going to be, they're going to attempt to improve their economy. So that's a 5. They are going to get an improving economy marker. So that they're back on the road to strong economy. We haven't implemented the conversion to base yet, but they would also get a base conversion here, which would be a big setback for us. And that is the end of the demo. I talked a lot about what the full game would have, but that is just a small slice, just a single activation phase, partially. But it should give you a sense of what it's like to play this game, the action choices, analyzing the board, figuring out what the problems are, and balancing threats against opportunities. I hope you enjoyed this. Please download the demo from Steam. Give it a shot for yourself. Take our survey to give us your feedback. And if you enjoy it, please wishlist. Thank you so much.